Welcome to Complete BS, the official podcast of couch coaches everywhere. Not just football. It's every sport that ruins your parlay, wrecks your fantasy week, and still brings you back for more. Buzzer beaters, blown leads, and brackets and flames. Yeah, we're all over it. Unfiltered takes, armchair analysis, and enough bold opinions to fill a playbook. Hosted by Brien Schmauch, sports junkie, the Saban of stats, and your official voice of, I could coach better than that. Let's go.
Buckle up, Couch Coach Nation. Week 8 gave us all we could ask for. We had 5 ranked versus ranked games, so we knew there were going to at least be 5 ranked teams losing, but we had a total of 9 ranked teams fall this weekend. Miami started things off on Friday night with a home loss. This is vintage Mario Cristobal in Miami. The question now is this the beginning of their yearly end-of-year slide, or can they recover? Nebraska looked anemic on the road at Minnesota. That gave us our second ranked loss before we even got to the weekend. Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, Alabama, and Oklahoma, they all dominated inferior teams. Memphis's loss messed up what was going to be probably the biggest group of 5 game ever next week. It's still going to be an important game, but it does slide down a little bit. Texas A&M, BYU, Missouri, Virginia, and Texas all escaped with close wins. We're all a fan of our favorite team, and if you love college football, you need to watch more than just your team and your conference. The games in the American Conference are so good and compelling. The Big 12 is so much fun to watch. College football, for all its flaws, is absolutely amazing. AV, what did you think of Week 8?
Week 8 was exactly what we hoped it would be, man. You had a lot of, like you mentioned, the ranked matchups. You had 9 ranked teams losing. 4 of those were in the top 10. A lot of them were upsets. Miami losing was an upset. Memphis losing to UAB. So, yeah, this is a part of the season where things start to shake out and you start to get a picture. And I'm glad you mentioned the Big 12 and the Group of 5, because the Group of 5, for the first time that I can remember, is really fascinating to watch play out. They have a playoff spot they're all playing for. There's a handful of good teams that all have a case. So I've enjoyed watching that. But yeah, Week 8 was a great week of college football, just like they all are. I stayed up very late till 2:30 a.m. watching. So probably about close to 14 hours of college football for me on Saturday.
Well, let's get into it with, I think, one of the best games, most interesting games of the day, Georgia, Ole Miss. Ole Miss forgot that this was a 4-quarter game because they stopped playing after the 3rd quarter. They went up in the 4th by 9 points, and then Georgia scored 17 points. Georgia did exactly what we thought that they would do late in the game. They ran the ball. Their last 3 drives produced 17 points. There were 17 runs to 7 passes. They outrushed Ole Miss 221 to 88. Gunner Stockton went 26 of 31 for 289 yards and 4 touchdowns, added 59 yards on the ground with a touchdown. Shout out to Lawson Lucky for 3 receiving touchdowns. He's always going to remember this game. I enjoyed watching this game, but I didn't come away impressed really with either team. Maybe it was just because there was so much offense in the game that I wonder, can they shut anybody down? Ole Miss was solid on offense for 3 quarters, and then they stopped. They never got any defensive stops. Georgia couldn't do anything defensively for 3 quarters, but then they did when it mattered.
Yeah, I think you're right, and the lack of defense kind of causes the game to seem a little weird. We're not used to Georgia not having a defense. It's a little weird to watch, but on the other hand, you got to give it to their offense. They're scoring points. I mean, they only scored 20 against Auburn and 21 against Bama, which isn't bad, but it's nothing great. But they put up 44 against Tennessee, 35 against Kentucky, now 43 against Ole Miss. So they're giving up points and they're outscoring people, which isn't typical Kirby or typical Georgia. But a win is a win. Ole Miss looked great. I think they scored a touchdown their first 4 or 5 drives and then nothing after that. A lot of Georgia's offensive success, not to take anything away from Gunner Stockton, he's played great, but is running the ball. And they leaned on it. We talked about it last week that we thought that would be the game plan. And it was. They leaned on the running game and scored enough points and got a couple of stops at the end, but just untraditional the way Georgia's winning this year, but doesn't matter how you get there.
They got the win. Alabama, they got the win too. 37-20 over Tennessee. I got to say, in last week's episode, I said Bama was going to win 38-20. So I'll give myself a little pat on the back. I had this one right on the money. Bama got a pick 6 just before the half that solidified their control, and there was no looking back. They also got a safety in the second quarter, and those 9 9 points shifted the game dramatically. Tennessee beat Alabama in every statistic, yet watching the game, it never seemed like they were in the game. They made critical mistakes in crucial times and they were done. Tennessee won the box score, but lost the game in convincing fashion. It felt like Alabama dominance.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's exactly right, Brian. Alabama just seemed like the better team. So Tennessee won all of the stat battles, right? Yards, rush yards, pass yards. But Alabama was more efficient. They had more yards per play. So they're just doing it better. They're just doing it at a better rate. And defensively, they score points, touchdown, safety. So offensively, they're more efficient. Defensively, they're scoring points. Yeah, UT moved the ball a little bit, but this game was handled by Alabama. Ty Simpson's firmly in the Heisman race for me, and Alabama is firmly one of the top teams that have a chance to win it all this year for me.
Absolutely. Alabama, you almost got to take that Florida State win and look at it in a bubble because it was Ty Simpson's first ever start. They're on the road. They didn't have Jam Miller. You look at that game and it's nothing like what they're playing now. If those two teams were to play now, Alabama's winning the game by 30 points. They're on another level right now, the way they're playing. They're every bit as good as Ohio State and Indiana right now. They're on a collision course for the SEC championship game. Kind of looks like maybe Texas A&M would be there with them. So we'll have some really good, exciting football down the stretch. And then at night, we had Notre Dame, USC. Notre Dame gets a 10-point win, 34-24. Again, I give myself a little pat on the back. I had this Notre Dame 31-24. Was just off by a field goal. USC passed. Notre Dame ran. USC 328 yards passing. Notre Dame 306 yards rushing. Southern Cal had 3 turnovers to just 1 by Notre Dame. And in the third quarter, USC took the lead 24-21. And you thought, okay, this is where they're going to assert themselves. And on the ensuing kickoff, Notre Dame, Jadarian Price took it 100 yards the other way for Notre Dame to reclaim the lead. Notre Dame added a touchdown halfway through the fourth quarter to ice the game. Notre Dame always felt like they were the aggressor in this game, and they probably left about 10 points on the field. This very easily could have been a 20-point win for Notre Dame. Their physicality, the way they're running the ball, they're one of the more impressive teams now in what they're doing. They had those 2 early losses to Miami and Texas A&M by a total of 3 or 4 points. Notre Dame's squarely in the playoff hunt right now. The 1-2 punch of Love and Price was absolutely crippling, and I'll have more on Love in just a little bit.
I think Jeremiah Love is one of these running backs like Ashton Genty that should be a high draft pick and that will come in and have an immediate impact. He's got an NFL body, big, strong, fast, shifty. He is an incredible running back. And Jadarian Price right behind him isn't bad either. That's a heck of a 1-2 punch. This game was weird to me a little bit because it did seem like Notre Dame controlled it, like if you were measuring game control for sure. But Southern Cal tied it up late in the second half, and that's when Price took the kickoff back for a touchdown. So they hung in there. One thing that you have to ask questions about is Lincoln Riley winning on the road. His road record is atrocious, especially against decent teams. Hats off to Notre Dame for playing a good team. USC's a good team, played them, took their best shot, and still won comfortably.
Well, as I mentioned, Jeremiah Love, I'd get to him. I've got a game ball for you, Jeremiah Love. 24 carries, 228 yards, and a touchdown. Added 5 catches and 27 yards receiving. Jeremiah Love, you get a game ball. My other game ball, we're going back to Friday night. Louisville wide receiver Chris Bell, 9 receptions, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. The second touchdown put the game away. Louisville gets the upset of Miami on Friday night. Chris Bell, you got a game ball. AV, where's your game ball going?
It's funny you give it to Jeremiah Love because I'm giving mine to Jadarian Price. I was watching that game. He's always the other running back, but he's really talented. He had 87 yards, but only on 13 carries. He had a touchdown, and then he had the clutch kickoff return for a touchdown. He contributed to that win as much as anybody. He's a good player. So a little love, a little shine to Jadarian Price.
Absolutely. Now we've got questions. And for me, Shane Beamer, I've got questions. You were a preseason top 20, in some cases a top 15 team, possible playoff team, had a potential Heisman contender in Lenora Sellers. Perhaps we should have known better when you named perennial failure Mike Shula as your offensive coordinator in the offseason. But you were 2-1 on September 13th. You lost your quarterback that day, so maybe that loss is understandable, but it was a good Vanderbilt team that you lost to. Then on Sunday, September 14th, Virginia Tech fired their coach. The next week, you had Lenora Sellers back. However, you didn't come back. You ranked dead last in the SEC in total offense, 14 of 16 in passing, last in rushing, dead last in scoring at 20.1 points per game. You're 1-3 since that job came open, and your name has been linked to it. You've got 3 tough games coming up that you have no shot now to make a bowl game. You're probably maybe going to be a 4-win team. You've got, I think, Coastal Carolina is going to be your 4th win, and that's it. Maybe Clemson at the end, but you're not making a bowl game. You're clearly distracted. Your team's feeding off of that. They're following your distracted lead. Maybe you need a fresh start. Maybe South Carolina would be happy to see you go and they can have a fresh start, but you haven't earned a new job. You haven't earned a raise. At this point, if I'm Virginia Tech, the only reason they should hire you is because they struck out on their top 5 or 6 candidates that they went to, and they're going to take pity on the son of their legendary coach, Frank Beamer, because you haven't earned a job. Shane Beamer, you get questions from the media and you get real defensive. I've got questions for you.
Valid. I've got some questions, and it may surprise anybody listening, not because the questions aren't valid, but kind of who cares, right? But I've got questions for Bill O'Brien at Boston College. You know, Bill O'Brien was considered a good coach. He took over Penn State right at a bad time, did well enough there, didn't do great, but like that was a terrible situation. So he did well, and then he gets hired for the Houston Texans. They have a few good seasons. He does pretty well there. Then he gets fired. He goes 0-4 one year and gets fired. Not super likable. Then he goes to the rehab program offered by Nick Saban and becomes an offensive coordinator. Gets back into the NFL as an assistant, and then takes the head job at Boston College. So last year, Tommy Castellanos was having the best passing year of his career, and he benched him, and that resulted in whatever happened there, and he left the team, and he went with the freshman quarterback who looked to be pretty good. And so it seemed to be a bit of a win-win. Well, then this year starts, and let's see here. They beat Fordham. Great. They're 1-0. They lose to Michigan State, lose to Stanford, lose to California, lose to Pittsburgh, lose to Clemson, and yesterday lose to UConn. So there's some good teams in there, and there's obviously a couple of bad losses in there. But then from there, they go to Louisville, at home against Notre Dame, at home against Southern Miss, at home against Georgia Tech, and then at Syracuse. There may be one more win in there. He's looking at a 1-win season square in the face. And I don't think he has answers to any questions. I just think they're going to eat this 1-win season, and I guess he'll be back. I don't think Boston College makes a move, but where do you go from here? And when do you get there? B, I've got questions.
Valid questions for Boston College and their leadership. What's going on up in Chestnut Hill? I don't have answers for you, but we've got the questions. Stay tuned on Thursday. We're going to have Matthew Sprouse from the Group of 5 Guys podcast to talk USF at Memphis and the Group of 5 race for the playoff. Really excited to have him on. You can follow Complete BS Pod on X and Instagram. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to Complete BS. Be sure to subscribe, share, and follow us online. And tell us what you think of this episode. Use hashtag CouchCoachNation, and let's keep the conversation going.